All right, welcome to the next section. So what we're going to do here is basically take the schema design we came up with in the last section for a roughly Instagram-ish application with photos and users and comments and tags and follows and all of that. We're going to take that schema and implement it, and I'm going to give you a bunch of data to put in your database, like a couple thousand of things to enter. I wrote a giant file. And what we'll do is put that in there so we all have the same starting place. And then we're going to pretend that we're the company and we're trying to figure out certain things. Like, do we have too many bots on our application? Are there user accounts that are inactive? Are there user accounts that have never posted a photo? Maybe we could send them an email campaign, encouraging them to post a photo. Or what hashtags tend to be most successful? That kind of stuff. So all of this section, every video will be asking a question, which is basically a nice way of saying it will be an exercise. But we're now posing it, rather than me just giving you a table, which is what we've been doing, where it's a table and I just ask you to recreate this. I'm now going to pose the question as if we work at a fictional company and we're trying to find something out. For example, it might be something like, we're running a new ad campaign and we need to figure out which 5 hashtags get the most likes. Something like that. So that's how this will work. Every video in this section will be a question. And rather than having all of the solutions at the end, making a giant video that takes like half an hour to go through, I'm just going to break them up. So every video will have the question at the beginning and then a following solution. But the first thing we need to do is insert all of our data. So included in this section is this file here, starterdata.sql. And there's 2 components. The first one is setting up our schema. And there's nothing new here. We talked about all of this in the last section. But if you were following along and doing it yourself, you may have named something slightly differently. Like instead of photo tags, you may have called it taggings. Or instead of, instead of followee and follower and follows, maybe you called it following or relationship or something. So in order to give you this data here to insert, I needed to make sure that we all have the same schema. Even if just one thing is named differently, it's a problem. So the first part of this is just a bunch of create tables. All the tables we discussed, as well as dropping the existing Instagram clone database, creating a new database, and then using it. If you want to keep your current Instagram clone database, if you've been working with that, just give this a different name, whatever you want. But you need to do it to all 3 of these. Okay, so we set up the schema, but then the fun part, which is all these insert statements. And it doesn't look that impressive when you look at it in Cloud9 because it doesn't wrap them onto new lines. And if I start scrolling, you'll see I'm scrolling really fast, but look down here at the progress bar, I've barely made a dent. And this is not a great way to visualize the data. So instead, here I am in Sublime Text. And here's the file that I generated. It's the same exact file. It's just displayed all here. Rather than having to scroll across, I have to scroll down. So, we won't do any sort of grand tour of the data, but I will say this. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I wanted this to work. Obviously, I didn't type this myself. I would have taken like days probably. Instead, I wrote some code, which still took probably a entire day and a half to get this how I wanted, because I didn't want just randomized data. If I just wanted to insert a bunch of random users and posts and comments that have no meaning to it, I could have done that pretty quickly. But instead, I tried to design this so that there is certain personas to our users. So some users post a lot, so they have a lot of comments, a lot of posts. Some users are lurkers, meaning that they don't really do anything except look at people, maybe like certain things at best, but they don't comment and they don't post. Then we have things like bots, which on Instagram are a real problem, where bots are accounts that exist basically to go out and like a bunch of things, comment on things, usually the same exact comment, but they don't post things. And then we also have like celebrity accounts who have very few people that they actually follow, but they have tons of followers. And they're not very active with commenting or liking, but they're very active with posting. So then we've got things like hashtags, and I didn't want to just do a bunch of random hashtags. I tried to actually come up with combinations of hashtags that would be common. So, things like smile and style and fashion might be together often, but then we might also have smile and party, or concert. Those might go together. Or we might have, landscape and sunrise and sunset and beach could be a combination for a beach photo at sunset. But then we could also have beach with party, or beach with beauty, or something like that. So that's just kind of scratching the surface, but I tried to design a lot of that in there so that we had somewhat realistic data. With that said, things like comments. The text of a comment is just random lorem ipsum text. So there's nothing there, that's going to be meaningful about the comment itself. What's more meaningful is the relationship between the comment and who posted it, and if they have a lot of comments or they don't have many comments, and that sort of thing. Okay, so that's enough of that. So even with all the effort that I've put in here, there's still only 100 or so, or exactly 100 users, about 250 something photos. But then when we start talking about likes, there's thousands, and comments, there's tons, and following or follows, whatever we called it, there's tons, and tags, there's only maybe 20 hashtags, but then when you apply them to all of those photos, 200 photos, we get thousands too, thousands of instances. So all you have to do is get that into a file and then execute that file. Let me scroll back over. It'll take too long. Oh boy. Almost there. Here we go. So execute this file, and I'll just do that now with source Instagram / starter data, and that should just be the path that corresponds to wherever that file is and whatever you named it. Okay. So it takes a little bit compared to what we've seen so far. So if we take a look, we've got, a bunch of tables being created, 7, I think, and then a bunch of things being inserted, 100, 257, 7,000, 623, 7,488, 8,782, 21, and then 501. So this is still a very small data set compared to, tiny, minuscule compared to Instagram. This is maybe like a minute of Instagram activity, or probably less than that, a couple of seconds, as far as the number of photos and stuff. But it's still an order of magnitude greater than what we've been working with. One other thing that I'll show you is that we haven't really seen giant amounts of data like this. And if you try and let's do a select star from likes, which I think we have a lot of. You actually, if you start to scroll through it, you'll see that we're not going to be able to see all of them. There is a number that the terminal, or that the CLI will print out for us, and then it just gives up or it decides not to display all of them. That doesn't mean they're not there. So if you did a count, for example, count star from likes, we get 8,000, and if you join them with another table, it will join all of them. It just won't display everything. So for some reason you needed to display every single like, it would be better not to do it using the CLI, but to do it from another file or some code somewhere. Anyways, so that's it. We've got the data set up. If you'd like, play around with it, explore it a bit, and then we'll start with our fun challenges in the next video.